All right, so this is the anniversary of when Shirley was kidnapped. We are going to take you on the walk. Nancy, tell us, what is this we're starting at?
So this is Grandma's house. This is on West Street. This is the gate that presumably she went out of that day, October 17th, 1975. And then she started walking down the street, down Lombard. So we're going to take you on her journey on the walk.
The whole way we're going to try to maybe answer some questions that you might have about this. Now I know there is a point coming up where they don't know which street we took. Is that coming up right here? So they think either she went straight or she turned left.
Right, and we'll talk about that when we get up there.
Okay.
Shirley Jane Rose was 9 years old, October 17th, 1975, and this is her walk.
So envision that. We're not talking like we're not talking a high schooler, we're talking a 9-year-old. Right now it's
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade, yes.
Fourth grade.
And right now this is not that bad. This is a neighborhood. Notice, no sidewalk though, once again. So you're out in the road.
These trees would have been much smaller. We're talking 44 years.
Yeah,
so this
you're
would have looked,
so right.
This would have looked so much different with all these trees being smaller, the houses being a little newer.
But I would guess the look of probably these houses is very similar. I would think most of them.
So I asked Cousin Christy about Grandma's house. I took pictures of it and sent it to her, and she said it really looks the same. It looks almost the same as it did back then.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So yeah, we're out in the street. Like best case scenario, you could kind of get in this little lane right here. But we're not talking really a very good solution.
But it's very quiet right now.
Right?
Yeah. We've encountered no cars so far.
That is true. And you're gonna see when we get up here that this part is probably not the problem. When we get up here to Scenic is where it's really gonna be obvious that, wow, this is no
A really
place for a
busy road.
9-year-old.
Really busy road. And it would have been busy back in 1975. That was a main north-south thoroughfare through Springfield. So you'll hear in the podcast again and again people talking about how busy Scenic was.
And also one thing I'm already noticing is this is not a short walk. I mean, we're already...
I told you when I did it the first time, I was like, oh.
Right, it's surprising actually. I already, because I know where we're going, so it's like, oh.
So this is Clifton.
Yeah, right up here.
Lombard and Clifton. When you talk about Clifton, Clifton is where the bloodhound indicates Shirley Jane's trail goes. Grandma says Shirley Jane always took Clifton. Mom said sometimes, but usually took this way, the straight way. So, you also have Joyce Morton. She's the lady, broke your heart, right? Who saw Shirley Jane and the kids were begging to take her out to eat and they didn't pick her up. They saw her go down Clifton.
Okay.
I think that's very important. The bloodhound indicates she goes this way, and Joyce Morton and her family indicate that Shirley Jane went this way. What this does is this keeps her off Scenic longer, right?
It does.
It's a busy road. It takes her up
and
Grand.
I believe there is a sidewalk that way.
It takes her up Grand, and then she can go to Scenic. And it's not a huge jump, but it does keep her off Scenic a little bit longer.
So which way are we going today?
We're going to go straight because there's a reason.
Okay, we're going on straight.
Yep. But I just want you to know that we have witnesses. We have the bloodhound that says she turned that way.
Okay. So yeah, and it, this is another thing that we're kind of just giving the tools. This is what we know, but it's so hard to interpret that information. I mean, 40 years later, it's like, was this dog on the nose, or were they training them as well back then? It just, like the case in general, you end up a lot of times there with more questions than answers.
That's right. That's right. But I want to reiterate Joyce Morton's daughter, Missy. Her and Shirley Jane were really good friends. And Missy's very clear about what she remembers. And she remembers Shirley Jane turning onto Clifton.
Right.
Taking that left. So,
I actually didn't remember that she was... I tend to kind of trust that information because it was such an event in her life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we talk about it a lot in the podcast that 40 years, like what do you remember that happened 40 years ago? But if one of your closest friends was kidnapped, that would clearly stick out in your mind. Right. So,
and it was probably a way they would go a lot. Joyce said she didn't let Missy go on Scenic because it was too busy. But she did let her walk up to a little corner store or something. So they piled around the neighborhood, and that just could have been a route that they took a lot too, kind of emblazed in her brain.
Right, and if you zoom on up here, you're gonna see that, I mean, the traffic is real. The cars are going fast. And when we get up here, it's gonna become very obvious that that's not even all of it. Like I said, there's no sidewalk. There's, and Aiden, you'll probably actually have to get a little closer to us because the cars are just zooming by. You can hear that when Nancy's taking the walk as well.
It's a scary event.
It sounds it in the audio. Boom, boom.
Right.
And I also want to make a point that I somewhat made in the podcast, and that is, out here on Scenic, the speed limit is what, 50? 45?
I don't know.
But it is
I don't
fast
think it's
enough
50. I don't think it's
that
50.
to be driving behind a little girl slow enough for a person to see it and think, oh, they're being followed.
Something suspicious.
Yeah, you would really have to be driving slow, which you can imagine exactly that happening on this street. Totally.
This street,
This
yes.
wouldn't even be weird.
Nope.
But on Scenic, I've just never tended to believe that detail because
It would halt traffic.
it really would, and it would stick
Right.
out. And as you see, the traffic is quick enough. What time did it happen?
6:30-ish.
So we're still
Between 6:30 and
talking
7.
like maybe not as high of traffic as 4 or 5 or
Right.
6,
Right.
but we're talking. I would guess right now it's 11 a.m. and I would guess we're talking a similar amount of traffic. Over here.
I don't know. These sidewalks are going to be new. But let's do this for safety.
Yeah, we'll
How's
do
that?
this for safety, and then we will run out of the option of
I-
sidewalk very quickly.
I don't know if she crossed over here. That's not clear.
We know these weren't
Wait.
here. You can just tell these are new, for sure. These sidewalks.
Wait. No, I'm wrong. This is Scenic and Lombard. I was thrown off by these new sidewalks. So over here is where? Let's cross. Sorry, I was off for a second. So this is Scenic and Lombard. This is Scenic and Lombard. This is where the one witness says he saw Shirley Jane. The guy in the blue car was following her very closely. He made eye contact with the driver, who freaked out and took off.
Okay.
So that's this intersection right here. If you go down Clifton and you take Grand up, you eliminate this intersection altogether. It doesn't even exist.
Right.
So his story was that he made eye contact with a guy who appeared to be following Shirley Jane, and he took off. The guy took off.
And the reason that this is important is the police believed this detail, right?
Yes. Oh,
They
that's
were
an all
fully-
all points bulletin out.
And it really changed the investigation. If you believe she went the other way, is to believe that this car clearly couldn't have been following her, right?
Except when we get to the other intersection.
Okay. So
So we believe she's on this side of the road.
so we showed you and we should just go ahead and walk it because we got to illustrate. I can't imagine it would have been much different then. You don't really go backwards with progress. You don't really cut sidewalks out. You know what I mean? That's not a thing.
So I went to planning and zoning. I actually zoomed in, and I could not see any sidewalks.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's the details you went to. You say this stuff, it blows my mind. Like, to say I wouldn't have thought of that detail is an understatement.
I have big maps on my desk right now, and there are clearly no sidewalks here. We do have this little patch up here. I don't know if it was there in 1975.
And it's so minimal. I mean,
Yeah, it's just
it's
tiny.
like 50 yards.
What's
of-
beyond there is what is crazy.
So right now, to give perspective, I believe we're about halfway. Would you say?
Yeah. I'd say this intersection is a good halfway mark.
Yeah. All right. So tell us what else. What other details do you have about this walk?
She was wearing white pants, a white embroidered shirt, and tan shoes. She had very dark hair, so she kind of would have stood out with her outfit and her dark hair. As we get to this intersection, which is Grand and Scenic, the man
We got a loud one.
who says he saw her at that intersection went to a store, came out, was driving back down Scenic, and says he saw her again here. And that again, a man was following her.
Wait, the same guy?
And he says he saw the car near her, and she was shaking her head and giving a negative reaction, like, no, I don't want to ride. It was a negative reaction is how it's described. Another man who actually is a family friend says he saw a little girl. Nobody can say absolutely it was Shirley Jane Rose. Saw a little girl, and she did not have a car around her.
Okay.
There was no car.
Okay.
So there are two witnesses. One, the guy who says he saw her at the other intersection, and then again here, and then a family friend in a bread truck who said he didn't see any car behind her.
I also want to make another point about the traffic, and that is we are actually having trouble with our audio because cars are zooming by so quickly. So hopefully that illustrates that it is...
As a producer, you found that in my walk in the
Absolutely.
podcast. It was like, what is this?
We had real trouble with the audio because cars are just flying by, but it does give you a perspective of what it would have been like. I can't imagine the speed limit would have been slower.
So this is how I describe it. She's either walking in the ditch or she's walking in the street. You want to walk in the street?
I don't want to walk in the street.
I didn't walk in the street either.
Like
So that's
as
just
a
fine.
right, as a Mustang GT just like speeds past us.
That means this side, this
Which,
hill.
okay, and I will say too, there is a certain, there's no houses very close. I really doubt those apartments were there.
That's all in.
So this is kind of a creepy feeling spot, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't have anybody to see you from this side.
Right.
Really only the other cars. Yeah.
I don't want to walk up there. I just don't.
No, that seems unlikely. Like, especially, was it dark or light?
6:38, so it's done. When I did this walk a year ago, I really paid attention at 6:30, like to what it was like, and it was just, you know, the sun was setting, and it wasn't dark, but it wasn't bright. It was dusk.
So, all right, let's talk about really quick. Give us kind of, there is another thought process that maybe she did make it home.
Well, people ask that all the time. Did she make it home? And investigators are like, you know, this is what Lieutenant Wilson said. If I had to bet money, I think she was picked up along the way, but I absolutely can't rule out that she didn't make it home.
What did Cloyd say? I mean, he doesn't. He may not give an opinion that direction.
Yeah, he really didn't. He was just
Gotcha.
thinking that the family should have been questioned if that didn't happen.
I know what I'm confusing. He says that it's more likely that somebody saw her and had known her. That's what he
Yes,
said that I was
yes.
confusing. Rather
And
than
that
a
would make
stranger.
sense if she got in a car, right? Because you would have to do this very quickly.
Yes.
Hey, Shirley, you want to ride? Jump in. And then she would jump in and you would take off. That could make sense in this scenario, that she knew him, trusted him, or considered him a family friend.
And I mean, it does make sense too that a child could be convinced easier. Hey, I'm friends with your mom, or whatever was said.
Sure.
Which
You want to
just-
walk closer to the street?
I mean, look
Or
at the
not.
lane. Here's the walking lane.
You're either in the ditch or in the street. I mean, I get that completely
Yeah.
nailed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not a comfortable walk.
No.
None of this is comfortable. So she has sandals on, little strappy tan shoes. This is not easy.
Now, Nancy, is she found in exactly the same clothes? I mean, I'm assuming yes.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the embroidered shirt is what was wrapped around her neck.
Okay.
The blouse.
So that does really lend itself to think that she was killed probably the day of, or is it really tough to say?
I don't know. You know, I had a former investigator say, did Jack say she might have been hogtied? Like her legs behind her back?
Right.
And I said, well, that's what it appeared to him. And she said, why would you do that to a child that you're just going to murder right off the bat? Sounds like that's something you would do to somebody you're keeping for a minute.
Yeah, you're totally right.
And I just got the creeps, right?
Now, I could see this building being here.
I could see.
So I could see this being part of the walk. But I mean, you get about 10 seconds of, a better spot to walk.
And it would have been 6:30. These would be closed. There might not have been anybody in that building working.
Once again, it really too puts into perspective how long this walk is. I don't know how many minutes we're in, but it's not quick.
No.
15 minutes.
15 minutes already?
Yep. And I mean, you got to think she's a little girl, even though we're not walking super fast.
Not a
Her
baby.
legs would be half the, I mean, I can't imagine she's doing it quicker than 15 minutes. That's certainly a lot of opportunity. We're close now. We're now in the home stretch.
Well, we're in the home stretch of Teresa's house.
You're right. I thought.
Teresa was a friend. She was 11 years old, and she lived up here, which I'll show you.
It is not an easy walk.
No, I know. And Teresa's dad, Teresa had been at scout camp, had come home. Teresa's dad left out one of the doors to go to his parents' house. Sounds like they live pretty close. And then Teresa hadn't been feeling well, so she was lagging behind. Her and her mom left just a little bit later. And she came out of the house. She said she saw Shirley. They looked at each other, and it appeared Shirley knew that they were leaving, you know. Oh, they're going, you know, just kind of acknowledged each other. And there was no car behind her. They did not see a car behind her.
This was Missy?
Nope, this was Teresa.
Teresa, okay.
Yep, and Teresa lives right up here.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I had missed that detail.
Yeah. So Teresa's house driveway, oh my gosh, it's so soft right here.
Yeah.
Teresa's driveway is where the bloodhound will indicate.
That her trail stops? Gotcha.
Can I show you where it's at?
Yeah.
That's it right there. That used to be a driveway.
Oh, this is it.
This is it.
Wow. And I wonder how many houses, because once again, there's nothing hardly on this side.
No, I Googled and I searched and I checked and I double checked. And when I got out here and I walked around, I said, oh, this used to be a driveway.
Right, clearly was
used to be a driveway.
And we're probably 200 yards from her house. So that means in that narrative, she made it very close to home.
So if you see that online ordering IHOP billboard, just right on the other side of that is her house, where those big trees are.
All right, well, let's finish it out.
So I just want to indicate again, this is where the bloodhound, this is where they say she was picked up.
These would have not been there.
No, this
No
would have led to a
apartment.
house. There's no house there. It's all construction stuff.
So you have to kind of use your imagination.
But Teresa said when she saw Shirley, there was no car behind her.
Wow, it is really soft.
Yeah, it is.
Hydrants.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
But again, I don't want to walk in the street. I don't want to walk any closer than I am right now.
No joke, that like 5 seconds I was in the street freaked me out. And the car behind me, like when I got off the road, looked at me like I was a psychopath. Dead serious. So I feel pretty confident she was not walking in the road.
So I mean, there's no one coming now, right? What if somebody pulled up? What if she's over here? So close. So she's 9. But what if she's over here in the car? I mean, of course, it would have been back there if we're going off the bloodhound, but I mean, that's possible.
Now, what did you say, Coley? Where does he lean in this whole debate?
He leans that she didn't make it home, she was picked up, and that it was a pedophile.
Okay, that's who you were talking about earlier, but he also said he wouldn't be surprised if it was the other way.
He said he can't rule it out. He can't rule it out. Investigations were just done. We've talked about that much differently in 1975.
Yeah.
And it's something, you know, people bring up a lot when I talk to them. Well, what if she made it home? And I'm like, well, no. I mean, if you go off the bloodhound and the witness, but if you go off other witnesses, it takes her away from that intersection, and then that wouldn't even exist. That story wouldn't even exist.
Right. And I want to point out again, the thing that makes this case so hard is that there aren't a lot of details and there's not a lot of evidence. But that being said, DNA technology has changed so much that I've always felt really strongly that the reason we want to try to solve this case is because I don't think a murderer should ever feel like I got away with it. I want people to know, like, even 40 years later with no evidence, we're coming for you still.
Which is
You
not
know?
how we started. We just wanted to do a story and
Right.
bring light to it, but
Right.
it just seems like maybe there's other avenues we could take to help.
And when I talked to Cloyd, who is our expert, Mr. Murder himself, Cloyd told me.
Cloyd
that-
Steiger in Seattle.
Yes, Cloyd Steiger in Seattle. He told me that DNA technology had changed more in the last 6 months than it had in the 6 years prior to it. So he really, you know, for instance, if I touch Nancy right there, my DNA is on her and they can get it. That's all you have to do.
Crazy.
So there's going to be tons of information. Coley told you they have.
Yeah, what's called an MVAC system, so they can extract it.
Well, I just mean he told you they have evidence. I mean, they have things to
Cloyd.
test.
Cloyd. No, Coley. I got
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, no, Coley says they have the ball she was strangled with. They believe she was strangled with, so.
Okay, now we are really in the home stretch. It's going to be right up there where it says, well, you can't really see the sign. And okay, also, since we're getting close, this is the house we're talking about with the paranormal team.
Yes.
This is the actual house.
This is where she lived. It was split into a duplex when she lived here.
That makes sense because it's a big house.
It's a big house. And it's now a plumbing place, a plumbing business, which if you listen to the podcast, you'll learn that family and their experiences in the house. I'm tuckered.
Yeah, it's a long, I mean, I think it's fair to say, would you let your 9-year-old daughter walk this path
I would not.
alone?
I would not.
I don't have any kids, but I can't imagine that I would do that. To be honest, I don't think I'd be a huge fan of making this walk like at dusk, you know?
Yeah. So this is her house. This is where she lived. This is now a business, a plumbing business. But in 1975, Shirley Jane called this place home.
And I'm glad that we will get the video, the house in the video, because there's a certain vibe about it that I just can't really put my finger on. It I don't know, it's very nostalgic seeming. It kind of looks like what you would imagine a house to look like in that era, in my opinion. The swing set looks like it was still there from the 70s.
I'm too close to the street. I'm scared. But there's a steep walk up. Here we are.
So we've made it back. We'll come around here and film the front of this house, and that will be it. It's up to you to see what you think.